So fellow Lanterns out there, welcome to a brand new video. First and foremost, good to have you here today. And you've probably clicked on this as per the title. You're wondering what is going on with the HBO Max Green Lantern series. I'm also going to touch on some of the other things that you may, I wouldn't blame you if you've forgotten about it by now, but what about Strange Adventures? But also, what I'm going to really get down to is what we know. I'm going to recap some of that. Is it still happening? Because that's a question I'm seeing more and more these days, understandably so. We're also going to get into the logistics behind why fans are doubting it going forward due to all of the happenings with Warner Bros. Discovery, David Zaslav at the minute. Just bottom line, believe it or not, why it is still most likely happening despite the very slow process. So, this show, the Green Lantern's HBO Max really ambitious series, was announced all the way back in 2019. And just to refresh your minds, that was an announcement for the series before HBO Max even released for the first time. Let's think about that. It was announced before HBO Max, the app that you've been watching, even came out. Like before you could even download it on your TV, your Xbox, or whatever you watch it on. HBO Max officially released on May 27th, 2020, and the series is still yet to start rolling cameras. But to not be too dreary here, it is definitely being worked upon with updates, so stay tuned for exactly what I mean by that. Now, for Strange Adventures and just Green Lantern, like these shows were announced at the same time, as described by Berlanti, that both of these original DC properties will be creating for HBO Max will be unlike anything we've seen on television. Did anyone kind of see the little joke in there? Because he's kind of right, though, isn't he? Like, we haven't seen it on our television, TV screens at all yet. Jokes aside, to not dunk on this, let's recap some of the details you may have forgot about the series. So, the Green Lantern series, Season 1, HBO Max ordered 10 one-hour episodes of the show. It is being co-written and executive produced by Greg Berlanti, Seth Grahame-Smith, and Mark Guggenheim, with Grahame-Smith serving as the showrunner. Now, you probably already know Finn Wittrock. I mean, I know him from American Horror Story, but he was cast in the lead role and will star as Guy Gardner, who is described for the show as a hulking mass of masculinity and, as rendered in the comics, an embodiment of 1980s hyper-patriotism. And yet Guy is somehow likable. Wittrock was the first actor to be cast in the show, and the only other Lantern casting news that we have so far is what we learned of in 2021, is that Jeremy Irvine will play the superhero Alan Scott in the upcoming Green Lantern series. To refresh your minds of the description / logline of the show, it is as follows. So from DC and HBO Max and Berlanti Productions comes a bold adaptation of the iconic comic book franchise, a saga spanning decades and galaxies. Green Lantern will depict the adventures of a multitude of lanterns, including Guy Gardner, Jessica Cruz, Simon Baz, and Alan Scott, Earth's first Green Lantern, who, true to the comics, is a gay man, and many more. The series will also include fan favorites such as Sinestro and Killowog, as well as introduce new heroes to the ranks of the Green Lantern cause. Now, just a moment ago, we detailed that the only other Lantern so far that has been cast for the series is Alan Scott, played by Jeremy Irvine, and he actually discussed in an interview with Screen Rant the ambitious and difficult journey it's been to bringing the project to life so far. So he says, "I am very excited. At the same time, it's been a project that's been around for some time. As far as I know, there is no start date. But when I get the call, I will pop on my green tights and be there. I think it's a very difficult time at the moment to get any project off the ground, and I know they want to do that project in a very large scale. I think getting all the stars to align on such an ambitious telling of that story is difficult, and I hope it all comes together at some point, but these things, unfortunately, take a long time, and they take a lot of different aspects to all line up." And I agree with what he's saying there. Some of this time that's been going, 3 years worth of time, is down to the ambition of this project, but there is most certainly a little bit more to it than that, of which we are going to get to. But this comment also mirrors what comments he made to Metro Entertainment, in where he also more or less said a similar thing. So when asked, "Have you tried on the green tights for size?" he replied, "I haven't yet. As far as I know, there's not a firm start date yet, but when they offered me the role, they did say it was going to be about 2 or 3 months to make the outfit. Now, they're gonna have to fit my paunch into it. So he's kind of implying, like, he's kind of been waiting for so long that he's not really cared so much about keeping super cut, if you know what I mean. And they're gonna have to jokingly squeeze a bit of room. But anyway, back on point, this was around back in May. So you can see why, even though we've got like a very clear indication that it's being worked on, it is still frustrating for fans that it's moving quite literally at a snail's pace. However, we did get that comment from Finn Wittrock himself, who gave us an update in early 2022, I think around February time, saying in an Instagram story that I am sworn to secrecy, and especially since I am new to the DC universe, I don't want them to kick me out of the universe, but I can tell you that the script is great, and that I'm just starting to get into Guy Gardner shape. Now, that would mean he is, and it doesn't take an expert to come to this conclusion, at least under the impression that filming would be happening at some point in 2022, but here we are now in June. But to be fair, he, as he said himself, just starting to get in shape. Like, he's gonna take his time getting there, maybe. But that's still not, like, promising enough for a lot of fans. So what is the most tangible update so far? Well, believe it or not, we actually do have an update, and I'm sure some people might say, yeah, but they're kind of saying this stuff because it has been like 3 years and they need to kind of say something to tide fans over. But regardless, you know, you make your conclusion there. Very recently on the Hall of Justice podcast, Guggenheim provided an update by saying, first of all, I think it's important to note that I'm not show running this show, so I have even less license than normal to speak about it. I wish I could talk about it. It's a really, really cool project. It's obviously very near and dear to my heart. I can say that I'm, you know, it's funny. I'm working today, in fact, on the outline for the season finale. So we're working away. And that's a very interesting update. I mean, obviously this show, as I'm trying to point out, despite all of the naysaying, which is fair enough because it's 3 years now, it has, as Finn Wittrock said, he's read the script, it's great, that makes sense, it has been written, like as Guggenheim recently said, he's doing an outline for the finale. So Finn Wittrock probably read the first several episodes or whatever, and he's thinking, hey, that's great, like I'm slowly gonna get into shape. So, you know, it is, again, moving alongwards, but, or as Guggenheim says, we're working away, but at a snail's pace. But even with this update, it still doesn't solidify the security or ambition of the show, and that's what we're going to get into now. And you may have already sussed that it could have something to do with the overlords, if you will, at Warner Brothers Discovery. Now, I'm not trying to put fear into your heart about this show. I'm just going to take some evidence and explain why some people are still apprehensive about Green Lantern, but not only Green Lantern, guys, this will segue nicely into what the hell is going on with Strange Adventures. Now, this is primarily a Green Lantern update video and what's going on, but I wanted to mention this because it, you know, offers that additional out-of-the-box kind of context into the announcements that were made at the time in 2019. Let's talk about that. And I do want to say, don't forget that this video could also be titled, What's Going On with Strange Adventures? Because on this front, with this TV show, news has been way more quiet than that of the Green Lantern series. And for those of you who need a little quick refresher on Strange Adventures, some of you may be like, yeah, but what the hell's that? Doesn't nearly sound as interesting as the Green Lantern show, spanning galaxies. But I'm not gonna lie, I was just kind of as anticipating this series as much as the Green Lantern one. And I still am, if the crickets ever stop chirping. So, Strange Adventures, for those who have kind of forgotten a little bit, is described as a DC superhero anthology that will feature characters from across the DC canon. The 1-hour drama will explore close-ended stories about the intersecting lives of ordinary humans and superhumans. And in a further description that both teases Strange Adventures and the Green Lantern series, I may as well read out all of it, is that Strange Adventures is an anthology series of cautionary tales set in a world where superpowers exist. And in what promises to be our biggest DC show ever made, we will be going to space with a Green Lantern television series. So we've spoken a little bit about that series, and we'll get back to that in just a second, but long story short, so I don't blabber about this, Strange Adventures, I love the idea of an anthology series, like a different perspective from humans living in a superhero-fueled DC world. Each episode explores different kind of perceptions from a different family, maybe kind of dealing with collateral damage of that, of maybe what Superman has done in Metropolis with a villain, Man of Steel style, if you know what I mean. Obviously, I have no idea what episode outlines they have, but that really always intrigued me. And for those of you who watched Fox's Gotham, you may or may not be familiar with the showrunner and writer, and that is John Stevens. Now, you may love that, but you also may not like that because he also made some interesting decisions on Gotham. Also, just to add this in the mix before we dive into, like, you know, the Warner Brothers Discovery side of all of this, is that Strange Adventures was also rumored to have been in development way back at the DC Universe streaming service, of which then moved over to the HBO Max development side of things, of when it was announced in 2019, which was a report that I found very interesting. More because if that is true, assuming it's true, it just shows you how long this show has been in development with still no news beyond the announcement in 2019. Like, guys, I have been looking everywhere. I've been looking everywhere for a crumb on Strange Adventures, and there's not even 1/100th of the information that we've got with Green Lantern, and people viewed the information coming out of Green Lantern not nearly enough. So, yeah, I mean, do let me know if you found something, but Strange Adventures, yeah. Now on to the next portion of this video where we get down to is it in danger or why it might not be in danger at all, really. So let me start by saying, honestly, if it wasn't for that update from Guggenheim with him saying, you know, it's funny, this is being spoken about because, you know, he's actually working today on, in fact, the outline of the finale. And then with this snail-paced news from even that of some comments from the actors just kind of waiting for that call, I think people would conclude, is this really even happening? But even with that update, inspiring confidence for some fans anticipating this series, fans are still like, yeah, but with all the recent happenings going on at Warner Brothers Discovery and that merger, in where it was reported not too long ago that David Zaslav wanted some cuts in the movie budget department, and you may be like, but what do you mean? Like, why is this relevant? You know, these aren't movies. But stay tuned, and I think you'll see how this is still an overlapping concern with how it is actually overlapping with some TV and HBO Max. So, with this report I'm on about recently that I've been referring to quite a bit, like, there's a lot of moving chess pieces going on at Warner Brothers the past couple of months, and I think a lot of you are aware of that. And this is detailed from The Hollywood Reporter that the HBO Max Wonder Twins movie was axed due to the budget being too high for what is considered for an HBO Max movie. And that is that the Wonder Twins movie was looking at a $75 million budget, but according to sources and The Hollywood Reporter, Zaslav wants to keep HBO Max original movies at $35 million and under. Like, nowhere 75, but like 35 and under. Guys, take note. And the reason for this is apparently that he has concluded that higher budget offerings do not add enough value. For example, add a significant number of subscribers, and more modestly budget movies seem to do the job of retaining subscriptions. Now, you may be still wondering, how is this relevant to the TV side of things on HBO Max? I do feel like it's somewhat a credible theory that Zaslav probably doesn't want insanely mad budgeted HBO Max original TV productions either. And what is that evidence I kind of have for that, even though this one is a little bit reaching with regards to, like, what J.J. Abrams was trying to do? So what I mean by that is the very recent news that came out with the recent happenings with shows at Warner Brothers is that of J.J. Abrams' latest show being way too expensive for HBO Max. So J.J. Abrams / Bad Robot Productions' latest show, and his kind of baby, if you will, Demimonde, of which was ordered to series in 2018, but now, due to the costs, of which, to be fair to HBO Max, it had an insanely high budget to be in the mid $200 million range. They've been like, no, like even though we kind of greenlit this back in 2018, like, yeah, thanks, but no. HBO Max had been trying to rein costs in, but JJ / Bad Robot Productions kept firm on their proposed budget. But here comes in the connection to HBO Max's Green Lantern series. Guess what other incredibly ambitious HBO Max TV series is? Green Lantern. Incredibly expensive. Of which, I do want to note, Guggenheim said it will have that of a movie budget that, of a feature film, like when saying, oh, this isn't going to be like, that of your kind of typical CW series or something like that. This will have a budget of that of a feature film. Now, this is where it really connects in with what I was saying with the overlapping Zaslav requirements now to that of TV. This comment from Guggenheim saying, like, the HBO Max Green Lantern series will have a budget of that of a feature-length film was made long before the current state of affairs at Warner Brothers Discovery, the current status quo, if you will, and the Zaslav comments. So as a result, the connection I'm trying to draw here, one that I can't confirm is a massive concern, but one that I'm thinking is why a lot of people are like, is because, okay, what does Zaslav not want on his HBO Max? What have we just been over? The old budget of that of HBO Max movies. Look at Wonder Twins, 75 mil. No. Look at J.J. Abrams, granted, $200 million thing. No. We need to rein in the costs of that. We're not doing that. That's a series, that's a show. We're not doing that. Movies needs to be 35 mil-ish. 200 mil for a TV series? No. This described comment from Guggenheim way back before Zaslav came in, and with everything I've just detailed about Zaslav's kind of outlook on HBO Max and reining in costs. This described feature-length film budget for the series on HBO Max of that of Green Lantern likely isn't making him smile too much. However, guys, here's the thing. That doesn't mean it still won't go forward with that budget, because Zaslav might be like, hey, you know what, fine. But what I do want to say and add into that, and even though this show, I do believe it still will be going forward likely, is that the fact that they haven't even started shooting or rolling cameras yet, let alone costume fittings as reported by the actors not too long ago, Zaslav, what I think can maybe, or I'm just saying, I'm not saying this will happen, but it's a possibility, he still can most certainly get involved on that of Guggenheim's comments of old made back in 2020. It's going to have that of a feature-length film budget, right? So do you see where I'm going with that? As a result, it could still be happening, as I keep saying, but he, as with what's been going on the past couple of months, considering it hasn't started shooting, can easily dip his fingers in the show and say, like, look, you can have all of this money, even though we're willing to maybe give you more than other projects, but yeah, kind of cut it for 30 mil or something like that. Yeah, we don't really want you to have the comments you made back in 2020 that of a proper feature-length film. He could still dip his fingers in, considering it hasn't even started rolling yet. Or, to play devil's advocate, David Zaslav might not do that. He might be like, look, I'm making an exception here. We committed to this a while back. We've made cuts elsewhere. We're going to give you the range of this. Keep your original intended budget. It's not as crazy as J.J. Abrams / Bad Robot Productions' show Demimonde for around $200 million. It's not that mad, even though it is pretty mad Green Lantern series budget. So for now, we're going to give you that. It is and has always planned to be a very ambitious flagship show for HBO Max. David Zaslav has come in and probably understands that. Green Lantern cause is a very kind of popular thing, and hopefully he's thinking maybe it's worth the investment. This might just be one of the few exceptions Zaslav is willing to let slide on having any kind of cuts, any kind of, what he tried to do with Demimonde, rein in some money there, but Bad Robot Productions just wouldn't budge, and that's why they're probably going to shop around now to other places. And also, a show, rather than that of like a Wonder Twins movie, to play devil's advocate again, will span around 2 months of subscriptions with 10 one-hour episodes, as I detailed, so he's probably willing to give it a shot with the proposed 2020 comments from Guggenheim long before Zaslav came in, and that of a feature-length film budget. But that's the thing. One thing that will come out of that, if he's fine with letting it carry on as was originally planned, budget and all, is that it will definitely be under a lot more scrutiny under him in terms of if it doesn't do well on the streaming service after season 1, he might be like, well, yeah, I don't know if I want to put as much into the second season, or maybe something worse. But I think that's unlikely, because I do think it will do well regardless, so because it's Green Lantern after all. So guys, in conclusion, I still think, to be honest, taking into account everything, the Green Lantern series on HBO Max is still happening. And according to people literally working on the show, and as of very recent updates, significant updates I might add, even if you want to say this is publicity sake to keep fans tided over for the next update, according to him, who is co-writing and producing, it's still well underway. 3 years later. So it is likely happening. I think maybe you can agree with that now, but that doesn't mean, especially with recent WB Discovery happenings, that it's going to be in the same shape, perhaps. I would love your input on that. Do you think they won't necessarily want to commit to the old kind of pitch and budget for it, even though I think it will still demand an insanely high budget for how ambitious it is? They still might want to trim it by like 10, 15 mil, maybe a few mil, I don't know. To further this conclusion, guys, given that we've had dribs and drabs, even as of most recently with the Green Lantern series, we've had shit all on the Strange Adventures show. So what I want to say here, given all the happenings from Zaslav I've been talking about here with money, I wouldn't actually be surprised, and I hope this doesn't happen, I do want to say that, but I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised that if in the next 7 months or so, 6 months, it gets reported by Deadline, Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, the major trades, that maybe the show is being cut, while Green Lantern progresses on to filming. That's something I can imagine happening, but in the perfect world, both go straight into filming. But yeah, Strange Adventures, that seems like they want it to maybe happen. The creatives obviously want it to happen, but just saying, wouldn't be surprised in the next year it's announced that Green Lantern, yeah, we're rolling now, we're rolling. Strange Adventures, still crickets making their noise. Let me know your thoughts on this. I know this was a bit of a long, rambly video, but I wanted to get into every facet that I could, offer you the facts, offer you my opinion, offer the devil's advocate kind of situation. But anyway, guys, would really appreciate a like on this video. Share this with your friends who want an update with stuff like this. That would really help me out, get out there in the algorithm a bit more. Subscribe if you made it this far, especially if you're brand new. I'm sure you'll enjoy the other content that we do here on the channel. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow Lanterns in the next video. Goodbye.